Hey, Sound Gospel Radio, good evening. And we are here another Thursday night on Sound Gospel Radio for our talk show called Let's Talk About It. Let's talk about it. We're here another night, another Thursday. I tell you, some people can't wait until Thursday night. It just comes in happy tonight. I said, Lord, they came ready before we came ready. But anyway, y'all, we're just happy to be here another night to share, to have a conversation with you. Oh my goodness. In tonight's conversation, we're going to talk about how do I move on? We're going to dive into that real soon. How do I move on? But before we do that, we want to continually say thank you to everyone that tunes in, to everyone that is a part of Sound Gospel Radio. We want to say thank you to all of our partners. We want to say thank you to all of the great people that are part of us, that have continually to sow and to donate and to really just to seed into this ministry. And we want to say thank you. We thank you. We appreciate you. Y'all are really keeping us alive. Y'all are really keeping us staying strong, and we're really appreciative. And if you want to be a part of that movement of supporting Sound Gospel Radio, you can see it here on your screen. And to those that are listening, we have PayPal and Zelle, which you can send that to donations at soundgospelradio.com. You can also go to Cash App, which is $ Sound Gospel Radio, or you can mail it at Post Office 412 Cape May Courthouse, New Jersey. If you need that information, again, those that are listening, those that are watching, you can go to our website, which is soundgospelradio.com. Again, that is soundgospelradio.com, and that's where you can see the information there that's to be a part of our movement. Also, you can ask questions, send us emails, reach out to us, and we're also on social media. We have our Facebook, we have our Instagram, we have our YouTube, we have our TikTok, and our Twitter. Oh my goodness, I was checking all these different mediums, and we're on there. And we also have our website at soundgospelradio.com. So those are the things we're doing, y'all, here at Sound Gospel Radio. We're moving forward. New year, fresh start. We're still in the month of January, so we're enjoying this January. Sometimes we're scared to move to the next month, because when you move to the next month, you blink again, you're at December all over again. Isn't that amazing? And that's how it seems. So it's like, dang, we already got to the end of the month almost already. So we're at January the 19th, and I'm like, wow. So listen, the person that is next to me that looks so beautiful, they say, well, who is that? Is she married? Yes, she is married. That's my wife. And this is none other than the one and only Mrs., not Miss, Mrs. Jaleesa Hoskins. And she is the vice president and co-founder of Sound Gospel Radio. And not just because she's married to me, no, she actually puts input, time, and effort into this organization. And I appreciate her. And money. Oh, and money. And money. And you heard that, right? Her money, our money, their money. Praise the Lord. Now she definitely does put it into this organization. Julie, so what's going on?
I'm here. Bless
I know,
the Lord.
One of those days, right? Just pressing through, right?
Pressing on the upward way.
Oh my goodness, press it on. Listen, we also have our special guest that is coming in. And Ashley, I'm not messing with you. And we're going to bring her in first. Miss Ashley Corbett, come on in the house. How you doing?
What's going on? I am good. All is well.
Yes, all is well, because it is well. And we're always happy to have you here on Sound Gospel Radio for Thursday night conversation that she looks forward to, y'all. She'll call me sometime. Yeah, we need to talk about this, or send me some articles and things that I need to read. And tell me I need to read it. I said, well, did you read it? She said she read it. I said, okay, we good. We good.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
Indeed.
But we appreciate definitely every effort you make for Sound Gospel Radio. Always good to see you every Thursday night, y'all. And I'm going to bring in the cheerleader of Sound Gospel Radio. That is none other than Dr. Diana Hughes. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm here, blessed of the Lord.
Yes.
Listen, y'all, we still talking about that prayer she prayed last week, y'all. Wasn't that prayer? I said, Mother was praying. Praise the Lord.
Indeed.
And we thank Him. We thank you for that prayer in that time of our remembrance, as we remembered the man of God that passed away in the music industry. And y'all, listen, we have a great, I don't say surprise, but always a treat to have, I'll say our pastor, the pastor of Sound Gospel Radio, but he is the pastor of Jaleesa and I, and this is Pastor Willie L. Johnson of Eureka Transformation Church of Wildwood, New Jersey, and also the president and CEO of Willie L. Johnson Ministries Incorporated, none other than Pastor Willie L. Johnson Jr. Welcome, sir.
I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise
Yeah.
shall continue to be in my mouth.
Continually be. Yes, sir.
What's up, everybody? ¿Cómo está?
Muy bien, gracias.
In the nombre de Jesus. All right, so I didn't pay this out. I said other than with Spanish on me. Definitely good to see everyone. And yes, I praise the Lord to Pastor Thomas Sherman. I just talked to him earlier for all the way from the great
Hey,
state
Pastor
of
Sherman.
Virginia. And Pastor and I had a great conversation today. Glad that he's doing well and he's on our executive board of Sound Gospel Radio. So it was definitely a great conversation he and I had today. Iron sharpens iron, y'all, and it's good to have someone that you can call that can call you, and y'all can encourage each other. All right, so definitely good to see you, Pastor Sherman, and definitely looking forward to more people that are going to engage with us tonight. And if you haven't already, if you're watching us, whether it's on YouTube or Twitter or on Facebook, you have a great opportunity to like and share. Yes, you can either like this program so that other people can see that you are being engaged, or you can share it and let other people know that we're live. Say, hey, listen, this great conversation is live tonight, and we want to be a part. And again, if you're listening to on our radio station, which I do see those that are listening, if you're listening on our radio station, you're more than welcome to share the link. Listen, tell the people how to get on the radio, how to listen to tonight's conversation, and we're going to dive right in. So listen, y'all, tonight's conversation that we're talking about is, how do I move on? The question that arose this week is, how do I move on? How do I move on? And somebody say, well, move on from what? There's so many things we want to talk about tonight, whether it's relationships. How do I move on from a relationship? How do I move on from a loved one that passed away? How do I move on from a family member that really hurt me? How do I move on from, like we talked about right before we came online, from losing a pet? You know, many people have their pets and their pets are their family. How do I move on from things that people done to me, like that were just hurtful? And like, just how do I move on? How do I grow from it? How do I recover? How do I overcome? How do I move on? So that's the question that has been ringing for this week. How do I move on? And so there's so many different areas that we're going to discuss in this arena. And so the question is, how do I move on? Now, sometimes I'll say this, depending on what it is. I'm going to say it in general. Everyone grew up in a different era, but some eras told you to get over it. And sometimes that can be a little rough, y'all. I don't know how y'all feel about that on stage here, but sometimes you're saying, oh, just get over it. It can be insensitive.
If we knew how to get over it, I'd be over it.
Yeah. Because it's like, oh, well, just get over it.
People that tell you just to get over it,
Mhm.
I think a lot of times those are people that are in church,
Wow.
saved, sanctified, filled with the precious gift of the Holy Ghost.
Wow.
And they figure that prayer is enough, and you can
Wow.
get over it by just serving the Lord, praising Him, and so on. Sometimes
Wow.
maybe you can, of course, but it doesn't always happen, because I experienced that with the death of my father, though.
Wow.
I really did. It was hard. I did
Wow.
not like the way I felt.
Wow.
I felt absolutely horrible. I thought God left me. I really did. I thought He left me. And I had to finally go talk to somebody.
Wow.
I prayed a lot.
Hmm.
For me to stop feeling that way took about 3 years.
Wow.
And I didn't know almost how to handle it.
Mm.
Thank the Lord for salvation,
Yeah. Yeah.
knowing the man, and knowing to go talk to someone. I
Yeah.
can't just go, because going to church did nothing for me. I didn't want to go to church.
Wow.
I didn't want to go. I really didn't.
Wow. 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 And real quick, before we move forward, I definitely want to say hi to the one and only Pastor Evangelist April Cheney from the great state of Virginia. She is on our advisory board for Sound Gospel Radio, and she'll be joining us real soon with a program on Wednesdays called Wednesday Warriors. And so we're looking forward to having that program be on our station. And she is definitely listening, y'all. Not one Wednesday go by just about that she does not mention Sound Gospel Radio. So it's good to see her. But yes, that is important. It's like, how do you move on? And so the question is, my question is this: Can we be saved, sanctified, speaking in other tongues, and still be depressed?
Yes.
Is it? 'Cause I'm just saying, because from an era that many of us have grown from, you don't be depressed. That's of the devil. That's that you don't talk about depression. You don't talk about being down. But is that possible? And is there scriptures that show depression? I'm asking this intentionally. Is there scriptures that show depression of those that believed and trusted in God, but yet had a season of depression because of the situations that have happened to them, and they're trying to move on? Just asking a question. I know we listen. Pastor, listen. I know we just started, but hey, let's just rip it open the bag of chips and dive in. Pastor, that's a question I just asked. What you got to say to that question?
Which one?
So the question about number one, I'm gonna ask the question: can people be saved, speaking in other tongues, and even the Lord using them? They laying hands on folk and causing healing. They go home and be depressed.
Unfortunately, yes. Yes. To connect with Mother saying, I've experienced it, I've seen it many times. Grief. When we talk about getting over, or how do we get through something, grief a lot of times, in whatever state it may be in, relationship, trauma, death of a loved one, those things that you covered, is a process. And so sometimes to get over it means you have to actually go through something. So many times we don't want to go through it. We don't want to face it. And so many times we may stay in a specific area of depression, which for me just means I'm in a low period, or I'm in a stagnant period where I don't know what to think or how to feel or explain how I feel. And so that grief, however it's situated, has to be is a process to get us to the point of acceptance. Let's just throw one picture out there. Look at Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. When he says, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. There's something he didn't want to do.
Right. Exactly.
He had to. He knew the reason. He knew the purpose. He knew the call. But humanity says, I don't feel like doing this. In my words. So then you get him hanging on the cross, and he says, my God, Father, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Those are examples of a type of depression. To where you're down, you're feeling a certain type of way. You're going through something. Sometimes you're navigating and having a hard time. So it is possible. And many times people that are gifted are very good in public, but not very good in private.
Yeah, that's true.
Because of those things that Mother said, a lot of times we figure, well, nobody's supposed to know I'm struggling. Well, I guess the way to overcome, the same way in the scriptures, acknowledge, admit. Those things are necessary. We preach confession, but we won't confess.
How about that? How about that?
Consider that. We preach confession. We preach homologio. We sing the songs, but we're not that. If we're the deep ones, we're not that interested in doing that.
Right.
And that would be because we're human too.
Exactly.
We're human.
Yeah. So listen, this is the conversation that we're going to have tonight. And the question is, how do I move on? So listen, like I said, I'm already appreciating. I see a couple of likes already. I see some likes. I see some hearts. So we definitely appreciate it. And like I said, I don't always want to sound like a broken record, but you actually help Sound Gospel Radio expand. You do. How do you do it? When you like this this program, just by your like, not your comment, we appreciate your comments because we can have a conversation with you. But when you hit the like button, what it does is it sends a signal into the program of Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, and it helps the video expand. Where it say this one liked it, it means that you put your stamp of approval on it, and because you put your stamp of approval on today's program, other people will tune in and watch it. And so we definitely appreciate that already, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing more of our family and friends that are tuning in, like this one here. That's all right, Sister Connie. Good to see you. She sits on executive board and been very, very intricate in different levels behind the scenes for Sound Gospel Radio, and it's always good to see you on our conversation. So you know what, we're going to start. I guess we'll start with grief. I didn't want to go here that fast, but listen, that's what happens here. Sometimes things move quickly and you got to jump in the pool when the water's moving. And so the question is, people say, how do we move on? And so Dr. Hughes talked about it. Pastor hit a little bit about it. But the first thing she said, one of the things she said was talk about it. One of the great things that can really help when we talk about how do we move on, y'all. So how do we move on from grief, from loss, from hurt, we're going to talk about so many different areas, but right now we're going to talk about moving on from grief. How do we move on? How do we continue? How do we get up the next day? And one of the things that is so true, and I agree, Dr. Hughes said it, is to talk about it. Some people, they tend to feel embarrassed. And, I got this from BetterHelp.com. So BetterHelp.com talked about this, and it says some people tend to feel embarrassed about their emotions, and they will try to hide them from others. It takes everyone a bit of time to open up, and that's the truth. It's the truth. But you should find people that you trust, that you can turn to for support. Having at least one or two people who can support you emotionally will be good. I'll say this. I lost my father when I was 13 in the 8th grade. So when my I call him my founding pastor, the church that I grew up in. Well, when his son passed away, his grandson was 13 in the 8th grade. So everybody's telling him, well, Nathan, you need to talk to him. You need to talk to him. You need to talk to him. And I wasn't forcing him because I remember how I felt when I lost my father at that age. It wasn't that I didn't want nobody to talk to. I didn't want to be just overwhelmed with somebody just trying to just let me talk to you. I said, listen, when he's ready, he'll talk. That's and right. I gave him his time. And so the funny thing is, everybody wanted me to, because you're the only one that understand. And I get it. I can understand. But no, I didn't understand. Let me tell you about wisdom. Just because we go through the same type of thing doesn't mean that we understand what the person's going through. Everyone had a different relationship. His relationship with his father was very unique than what I had with my father. So his reaction may not be the same reaction that I had when I lost my father. You get what I'm saying? Because of just their own unique relationship. So just because I understood, I did not understand. I didn't know how he felt, what emotions was really on the inside. Was he angry? Was he, resent? I don't know. So I waited for the right time. Now, here's the funny thing. I didn't push him. And I'll never forget it. We were in the Ocean City, New Jersey, and we're getting ready to walk up on the boardwalk. It was me, him, and a few other young people from the church. And literally, as we're walking up to the boardwalk, he just goes and just blurts everything out of his feelings and everything. And on the comical side of me was, you wait until now to bring this up because we're trying to have fun. We're on the boardwalk. We're getting ready. But right. At the end of the day, I let the rest of the young people, hey, listen, y'all go, they rides, food, whatever. And he and I just begin to walk down the boardwalk and just begin to talk. And I just listen, let him talk, let him share his frustrations and his feelings. And that is one thing to do. That's number one. The next thing was allowing yourself to grieve. Allowing yourself to grieve. And again, from the article that I was reading, and I just agree with it, but I'm just going to just ride into it. Accepting the loss of a loved one isn't always easy, and some people try to avoid grief instead of processing it. You might consider throwing yourself into your work. Some people do that to avoid having to grieve for your lost loved one, but guess what, y'all? It's not healthy. It's not a healthy thing, and it will benefit you to let yourself it says, this isn't healthy, and it will benefit you to let yourself get emotional about the heartache of missing a loved one. So it says you might not be fine right now because this person meant a lot to you, yes, But coping with grief takes time, and we just talked about that. And you don't have to do it alone. Let me remind you of that. You don't have to do it alone. As mentioned earlier, finding someone to talk to can help, but allowing yourself the grieving moment, allowing yourself to go through the process of the emotions, and even the next portion talks about allowing yourself to feel angry. It's okay to allow yourself to feel those things. Am I correct? Okay, okay, she said that's important. Yes, it is. It is important.
It is important. It's very important because when I was put into the situation where because my father was the pastor of the church, I would go in the church. That chair is empty, draped in black.
Wow.
The chair is empty, draped in black.
Wow.
And that could have had more effect on me than I realize, because those kind of things happen.
Yeah.
Well, can y'all tell me which one of the grief signs that y'all had or experienced? If I'll start with myself, the one I experienced, I didn't have denial. I didn't have any threatenings, and I don't think I was depressed. Don't know. But I did have anger.
I'll say, what? I think I had denial because now here's the weird part, y'all. I found my father dead on the ground. When I got home from the store, he was in the kitchen on the floor dead. I'm the one who found him. And the weird part is we went through that week. We went to the funeral home. I even asked to see him at the funeral home. I don't know what was wrong with me. They brought his body out. I looked at him. The funeral the whole time. I'm looking at him in the casket. Didn't cry at all. I just, daddy's gone. And I was in my room minding my business. This is the night of the funeral. After the funeral was done, we put him in the ground, everything, went through the repast, the whole thing. And I'm just in my room, just, hey, my mom said, Nathan, come here. So she brings me into her bedroom. And she said, and I just thank God for my mother and her spirit of discernment and just her just knowing what's going on. She said, Nathan, I'm concerned about you. She said, do you realize your father is never coming back again? Y'all, when she said that, and I looked over at his clothes and all his stuff, and when she said, she had to use that's the words that broke me. I mean, the whole week I was good. I was smiling. I knew he was gone, but I didn't know he was gone, I guess. So when she said, don't you realize he's never coming back? That's when I lost it. That's when I went off. I'll never forget that. So I guess I did experience that denial when it happened. Yeah.
Go
ahead.
No, I think mine would be denial, anger, and being selfish. I think I was being selfish because, losing both my grandparents, I was very close with them. And when I lost my Nana, how it happened was kind of like, it just was sudden. And I felt so selfish because I was just like, I felt like I needed more time with her. And I felt like, at times when I was depressed, she was somebody I could always go to, or I could just sit and be in her presence. And everything just that was bad for me just made sense whenever I was around her. I could pick up the phone and call her. So I felt selfish when she left, when she was no longer here. And I just felt selfish that I didn't have that anymore. So I could say selfish anger for me more than anything.
Because really, I guess it was a week later too. Happens on a Monday, funeral's on a Saturday. You have service on a Sunday, and like mother, you have the drapery, you have the bunting, and you haven't cried, and you think you're feeling pretty good until 10:58.
Wow.
10:58, 11 o'clock a.m. Worship is starting, and the church is packed.
Yes.
And you walk out, or I walk out, see all these people worshiping the Lord. And I think that was my first release, because I could feel the cry come on. So I went back in the office, cried. Second thing I thought was, man, I guess I am human, huh? If you're analyzing yourself,
right,
you're human. But the anger was, well, where was all these people last week?
Well,
and the week before that.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, you have a job to do. So you do end up throwing yourself kind of into work. But yet at the same time, You have to navigate all those processes. So when you use the word getting over, I don't think anybody ought to get over any of them. I think they ought to go through the process.
Yes.
And come out on the other side.
It's the truth.
I don't know if I ever go through. I think the only grieving I ever recall doing was the most recent death. Like I remember other family members dying and being sad. Like, and I remember those moments, but it was almost like I could kind of get over it, not get over it, but it didn't seem to affect me to the point of like tears or sadness. Like there may be moments like that would happen, like these random moments where I'd be sad and miss the person. I think the most recent death is the only one that I actually remember. I'm like grieving that one. And it was like, I don't think I did it healthily either. It was just like, and I didn't really realize I was in, I guess, like a sort of depression. It was just weird. It was just, everything just felt like autopilot. Like my mind understood. I knew this person was no longer here, but it was still at the same time, I'm like, I know they're not here, but then you're still almost kind of like rationalizing. It's like, well, maybe they're just away or they're just on vacation or I just haven't seen them in a while. And it's like, no, you haven't seen them because they're not here. They're not on this earth. So it was weird. I tell the story. I think I told the story one time before. We have like a board on our refrigerator, and I remember the date, January 18th, and I wrote such and such's birthday celebration because I wouldn't write homegoing, so it was birthday celebration, and I left it on that board for babe. How many months was it that thing was on that board? I couldn't erase it. I could not bring myself to erase it. I don't know why. It was like, as long as I knew that was there, it was almost still like there was some type of connection to this person. I guess it made it less final. I guess just seeing that on the board, I'm like, and I came in the kitchen one day and happened to look, and that thing was erased. You want to talk? And I didn't say anything at first because I was angry, but at the same time, I knew it needed to come off that board. I couldn't just leave it sitting on, because it probably would still be sitting on there 3 years later. It would probably still be sitting on that board. So birthday celebration, I could not erase it. And we ended up talking and laughing about it later, but he was like, babe.
Now there's certain things that people have to do to help them get over. Some people have to visit the grave every day. I've known of people to do that. Visit the grave all the time.
And what I love about you all on the platform is I know sometimes we share notes, sometimes we don't, but that's actually, this time we didn't get a chance to share notes. So that's actually the next piece to help you. Those that are dealing with grief, again, we have some other conversations we're going to try to move into. We have a half an hour left, but we got stuck on grief because grief is a big one. And we're going to talk about some other ones hopefully soon. But the next thing, Dr. Hughes, I want to let you finish, but was to remembering your loved one. To like you said, by visiting the grave or different things like that. Yeah, that does help. It helps you get through the process, as Pastor said, and I like that. To help you get through the process is to remember them by, like you said, visiting the grave, or like you said, like I said, sometimes the slideshows or going through pictures, family albums, so on and so forth. Those things, they help. They really help. And so me erasing the board wasn't that I wanted Jaleesa to get over the memory of her grandmother. It was also to help to move better into a better, healthy grieving. Because I believe there's a difference between mourning and grieving. Because, we can mourn someone's death and we can grieve. The grieving process is going to be ongoing for the rest of our life. And we're still in that, when we're mourning and we're still in that real dark place, I don't believe we're supposed to stay there forever. It does have its time. It does have its place, but we shouldn't be there forever. We got to kind of move on. And so for me, what had to happen, one of my moving ons, and it was helpful, was my father passed. I still had the leftover programs. I just could not throw away the leftover programs for my father's funeral. And I'm talking about over probably 50 to 75 copies I'm holding on to, this big old bag. And it took me, y'all, I'm telling you, I think I was watching the Learning Channel or something with cleaning, some type of network. I forget what I was watching. And it was teaching you how to get rid of clutter. And it was like, even if it's something like with your loved one, they said at least hold on to 10 of them. So I got rid of the rest of them, and now to this day, I still have about 10 programs left because I just could not throw away. I felt like I was throwing my dad in the trash. I just, and people, y'all, if you understand, I just couldn't do it. And so the good thing about me keeping some of the programs was I would run into people after the service, sometimes 5 and 6 and 7 years later, that didn't know he died, and I was able to run to the house and come back and give him a program. But I had to let it go. I said, Nathan, now it's been almost 15 years now. You got to cut down on the program. So I finally got myself together, and I think I even said, sorry, Dad. And I got rid of those, those little bit of, and I still have about 10. I have 10 left, and I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what's helping me get through the moment. It's been over 20 years. My father's been going over 20 something years, and I'm still go through the process every once in a blue moon. Right before we got married, Jaleesa called me 5 years ago, right before we got married, and said, Nathan, we were thinking about doing a memorial table at the wedding. And she said, what picture you want to use for your father? And y'all, I busted out crying like the man had just died.
Wow.
I cried so hard on that phone and then busted out laughing after I was done.
Right.
Jaleesa didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to respond. And I'm on FaceTime. I'm like, going in, y'all. And then I was like, just bust out cracking up. I said, Jay, I am so sorry. She's like, I didn't know what to say, but I'm just here to support you. That showed the process. It moves in different ways, but I do honor him. I honor him every chance I get. I use him a lot in my sermons because that was a really crazy experience for me. And also one of the things that helped us to move on was I asked the Lord to never let me forget the things he taught me. I can still tell y'all clear stories to this day. It's been 20 years. And I thank the Lord for doing that because I was 13. I said, Lord, don't ever let me forget. I said, please don't let me forget anything. Like some of main stories and, trips and things like that. And I can still tell you guys stories like almost from start to finish clear after 20 something years because I hold on to those memories and that helps me, that helps me continue on the process to move on. And I definitely hope that is an encouragement about with someone else. The next thing was people said, think about what your loved one would have wanted for you. Think about that. What would they want? They don't want you to be just sitting there stuck, 5 years later, Jesus, and you still in the corner crying. No.
That depends on too the relationship that you had with the loved one.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. That's true.
Yes.
That's true. I'm saying, and that's why I said that's true. When I say loved one, well, see, if I'm calling you a loved one, that means I loved you and you love me. I'm just going to be specific, okay? Because there's a difference between a relative that died and the loved one that died, okay?
Yeah. But even then, Dr. Hughes, you can, like Nate said, I think talking to somebody, but you got to find the right people to talk to because some people can be very insensitive to how you feel. And that can also be a way to just be like, you know what, I don't want to talk to anybody. But also, like you said too, Nate, not consuming yourself in grief. Because oftentimes we put ourselves in a dark space and it's just like, all right, we putting ourselves in that space knowing like, okay, we have all the good moments, all the good times, you sit and you find that one person you can trust to talk to and allow them to be a part of your healing process so you can move on. So, I think the biggest part that we have is consuming our own selves in grief.
Is it true?
And talking to insensitive people. Like, don't talk to somebody, who's just going to just blow off how you feel or tell you, like you said, get over it because that's not what you want to hear,
It's true.
So. I prayed to the Lord as to who I should talk to.
Wow.
I went to God about that because I knew within myself already that I couldn't just talk to anybody. So I had to have God lead me to the person that he wanted that God had to help me.
That's good. Wow. It's important. It's important and it's helpful. And the last thing I'll say it, because I'm always here to share to help somebody that's watching or listening, is to support yourself emotionally by taking care of yourself physically, because I have been in a season, not just my father, but I've lost other people in my life. And I even say about now it's almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago right now, lost someone very close to me and I did not grieve appropriately. I became unhealthy. and my eating habits had changed. My weight had gained because of the stress and the depression of losing that loved one. It was a really hard death. It was so many things that had happened in that season and time. And my reaction to it was not eating properly. And so it's funny because, we're still, preaching and teaching and, like I said, encouraging everyone else. And Pastor said it, you go right on home and people don't know what you confront with yourself behind closed doors. And it's like, man, this was a rough situation. Again, thank God for family members that saw eventually that I was going through. And my mother, again, I always thank God for my mother because she's been a blessing. She gave me a book on grieving, y'all. And the funny thing was, the way we have a relationship, when she gave me the book, I looked at her, she looked at me, we busted out cracking up because she didn't know what else to say. She's like, when you're a preacher, and I'm gonna be honest with you, sometimes when you're grieving, you don't want to hear scripture. You don't want to hear a song or the Bible says. That's why I'm very careful when I approach people when they lose someone. They at that time, y'all, they don't want to hear poems. They don't want to hear, they're watching over you. Pastor said it. Pastor, I love your examples. Pastor said it best. Why would I tell somebody that they're watching over me? Why would I even want to imagine my loved one? And Pastor, I may say it wrong. I should let you say it. Can you say it so I won't say it wrong? Go ahead, Pastor.
I think I've said this to a couple of people who've asked me, is asking the person, do you feel that your loved one is at rest and at peace? They said yes. I said, how would they feel if they could see you going through your suffering, your pain, your grieving? Would they be at rest and would they be at peace? They paused and said, well, no. I said, so, and even actually talked about the selfish part of it. So I don't see them as seeing you because then they're not at rest, nor are they at peace.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, and so I believe that when they're at rest and at peace, they're not necessarily dealing with our suffering.
Right.
They're at rest and they're at peace.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
That's the part there. Listen, y'all, we're gonna
and that part helps us to deal with our selfish part of us because we all have it.
Right.
Absolutely.
We all have it.
So those that are tuned in, we are talking about how do I move on. And listen, we got really stuck on grief because we have lost so many people from 2020 to now. It's been, not just 2020, but we're saying it because it's been a lot that has happened. And the question is, how do I move on? Not just grief, but we're going to see if we can squeeze in some other subjects and maybe revisit this another time. Again, I just always want to say thank you to those that are watching us and you have already liked. There's someone that liked today's conversation. There's some that have shared it, and we appreciate you all today that are listening. I said, oh my goodness, I went to the radio station. I said, Lord, we have a few people that are listening to us on our actual radio station. And how do I listen? You can listen at soundgospelradio.com. That's how you can tune in. You can listen at soundgospelradio.com. You can also watch us tonight for this conversation on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So we thank God for you that are here. And tonight, the topic is how do I move on? And we started talking about grief because it really is a serious thing that we all have dealt with in different ways. And like I said, not just the loss of a loved one, many people, their pets were their family members. And we respect that. We respect all those different levels of grief. But I definitely want to touch some other subjects if we can. And we need to come back. I have no problem coming back in the future, but definitely want to touch some other subjects. The next question is, how do I move on from trauma, y'all? How do I move on from trauma? We have 20 minutes. We're going to discuss this. How do I move on from trauma? We have some traumatic things that have happened to us, and how do I move on from trauma? Ashley, you want to jump in and talk to us? How do we move on from trauma?
I'm gonna look at my notes. So one of the things was avoid spending lots of time alone.
Wow.
I think that's a big thing because in times when you have too much time to think and sit and soak in all the wrong things. So again, it goes back to even with the grief thing, finding somebody that you can sit and talk with, somebody that you can trust, somebody that will get you out of the house, somebody that will take your mind off of everything and encourage you, pray with you, guide you through everything, just be the helping hand that you need, and make sure it's sincere. I think that's very, 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 very important because some people can act like they're sincere and turn around and it's something completely different. And it's just like, man, I thought you were really there for me. And it turns out like you were only there for me just to figure out what was going on with me or dig deep into my thoughts and then take it and use it to your own advantage. So I think that's very major.
Yeah.
We've all had that happen too. So, and then another one was sticking to your routine, finding a healthy routine and something that works for you to help get your mind off of the whole world. It seemed like the whole world just doing a whole 360 on you. So finding your healthy routine, whether it's going to work or exercising or writing. I know with me, I used to love to write. Whenever I was upset, I can always express my way through writing. I felt like that's something I could always just get my thoughts out there. So if nobody else listened to me, I could put my thoughts on a piece of paper.
That's
And
good.
it was just like, I'm speaking to myself, speaking life into myself. Even if nobody else understands me, at least I can write it down and I can get my thoughts out.
And so before
If
we
anybody else wants to jump in, yeah.
before we move forward, let's talk about when we say the word trauma. I know it can be, listen, this trauma, y'all, and y'all can help me list some of this. It could be, unfortunately, it can be an abuse that has happened to you, whether it's physical or mental abuse. It could be a trauma, could be an accident that has caused trauma, that have brought forth a trauma. Those that have been that service that served us in the military and they've experienced some trauma overseas or over, there's just so many different levels of trauma. I'm trying to, if y'all can help me list some other levels of trauma, we want to call them out the best way we can. What you got, Jaleesa?
I was going to say, I mean, if I think anything that you have to move on from could kind of be classified as a trauma. If it's something that affects you that deeply that you can't just, oh, this happened, move on to the next thing. If it's something that is going to take a process for you to get out of, that could be classified as a trauma. And traumas are different to every person. Something that I don't think is that deep or serious could be considered a trauma or traumatic to someone, and vice versa.
That's true. That is true.
That's right.
That's true. And so there's different ways that we can move, like I said, to just to grow from it and to learn from the trauma. Like Ashley was giving some good points. Ashley, did you have some other points you wanted to give?
Just read my notes. This one of it. Another thing says practice accepting difficult emotions.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Read that one again, Ashley.
Practice accepting difficult emotions.
Yes.
Wow. I'm mad she said it and let it marinate.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a preacher right there? Oh my goodness.
I mean, that's a big one though.
It is.
It is.
That is. Because I think oftentimes as humans, it's uncomfortable. We don't like to sit in and deal with uncomfortable feelings or emotions. So you try and find some ways to distract yourself or not think about it. And then at the end of the day, you end up having to face it at some point. And sometimes you end up facing it now when it's all pent up and built up, and now you're just exploding and you're going out of control. When if we had just taken the time to kind of deal with the stuff day by day when it's there, learn what is this feeling, first of all. What is it? And then, okay, this is how I'm feeling. How do I not feel this way? Or what can I do? Like, oftentimes we don't take the time. I know I don't. I don't like uncomfortable. I don't like hurt. I don't like any of that. So if I can avoid it, I'll avoid it, but it don't work.
Well, I want to stop. I want to take a break real quick and say this. This is for all the parking lot prophets. So anyway, let me move forward real quick because we see some more people that are tuning in. Today's topic, y'all, we're talking about how do I move on? And so for about a great length of today's conversation, which I have no issue with, we talked about grief. And so there's so many other things that we will squeeze in when we can. And so right now we talk about the trauma because, again, the trauma is also grief. Losing a loved one is a traumatic experience, but also, some abuse, physical, mental. But I said for all the parking lot prophets, you have those that they say, oh, I feel like I need to help the sister or brother with the trauma. And so I want to share with y'all some tips for those that don't know. You want to be a help and you want to feel like you're led to minister to somebody. When you're approaching someone that's dealing with trauma, there's some things that we all should try to avoid. How about we try this? That's number one. Try telling them how you feel. Even, and I said this earlier, but I just want to hit it real quick. Even if you've experienced something similar, people experience situations very differently. it can be unhelpful to make comparisons, y'all. Doesn't help. It's not always helpful. Listen, another thing, telling somebody that's going through a traumatic experience, telling them that you're blessed to be alive. People who have experienced traumatic events, often they don't feel lucky or blessed at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You're lucky to be alive. You're blessed to be alive. So often they feel guilty. They can feel guilty for even being alive, especially if someone else has died. All right. Another thing, minimizing that person's experience. Avoid suggesting it could have been worse. You don't tell somebody that when they're going through a traumatic experience, because their experience is the most traumatic to them. Even if you are trying to make them feel better, this can make the person feel as though that their experience aren't justified. Oh my goodness. And the last thing I want to share real quick for conversation is making unhelpful suggestions. Avoid making suggestions. Even if you have found that these things have worked for you in the past, people are very different, and often they may have already tried what you are suggesting. So if going outside getting some fresh air work for you, that may not work for everybody.
Right.
Well, you need to drink some tea with lemon and 2 drops of honey. Or that'll heal the traumatic experience. No, that did it for you. That did it for you. So we have to be careful. I know we want to be a help. That's why I tell people we really lean into wisdom, to the leading of the Holy Spirit, and sometimes just staying silent helps always too. Okay,
just listening. They end up telling you.
Listen, that is true.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That is true. That is true. Just listen. That's true. Oh my goodness, y'all. We still have a few minutes left. Listen, some of us have experienced relationship issues. I'm gonna ask this question. How do somebody move on? Anybody can jump in. If you are in love with somebody and the person's not in love with you, and they told you they're not in love with you, but you have a problem moving on, how can I move on if I have a problem? If I'm stuck, anybody want to jump in on that? It's just then the person you already know, they done gave you all the reasons why they ain't feeling you like
red
that.
flags has been flagging. And
red flags has been. The whole praise dancers ministry just red
flags have got to be going on.
But some people need to hear this. So how do I move on when the person already told you? Yeah, and I love him, and you praying and fasting.
The way I feel about a relationship, and if you don't want to be with me, I'm done. I am
some it don't work that way because they've invested some time, they've invested emotion,
exactly.
They've invested feelings. So now it's get over it. I've done all this stuff. They didn't ask you to, but you went ahead and did it, and now you're forced with trying to move on. And it's like, and sometimes it's a lot of things. And sometimes it's embarrassment, because sometimes you already feel stupid of the fact that one, this person already told me they ain't feeling me the same way I'm feeling them. Right. Especially if y'all aren't in a committed relationship, y'all just talking, entertaining each other, you feel more stupid. So then you keep fighting more because, I don't want to look stupid. I got to save face. I got to prove that this was for naught. I'm like, oh no, it's for naught. And you just hurt yourself more. Listen. Trying to force it. Sometimes it's in that type of situation. Sometimes it takes something really traumatic and hurtful to happen for them to get it. Because if they're not understanding that they've already said, this person's already told you, I don't want you that way. Sometimes it takes something like really, really hurtful, as in anything. They up and are married, or they go and have a baby with someone, they go do it. Sometimes it takes that traumatic something for you to be like, oh, sometimes.
I think people get comfortable and they're afraid to start over because they think like, oh, I need to be with this person. This is all I know. And sometimes that could be your chance to have better opportunities. How will you know if you just don't, like, you have to move on at some point, like you said, but people get so comfortable and caught up in that lifestyle, whatever it was that they had. And like you said, Jaleesa, it has to take an uncomfortable situation to make them say, you know what, I'm done. Like I'm finished, even though that person was done with them. But it's sad because it's just like, it shouldn't have to take that much. If a person's no longer in love with you and don't want to be bothered with you and you're still sticking around, it's like,
But here's the
Sounds
deal: you said no
crazy.
longer in love. I was also coming from a respected person. Was never in love with you in
they
first
never
place.
claimed you the same
You
way
were
you
in
was
love with
claiming it.
them. They weren't in love with you, and you still are pursuing. Pastor, I don't know. Pastor, something's in your eyes. I saw some hearts. You done turned into the love doctor. You want to share? I feel like you need to share. Go ahead, Pastor. What you need to say about that?
Well, for starters, when we find ourselves that way, it's something that's happening way before that. So anytime you're clinging to something, it's something you're trying to fulfill. So you're trying to fulfill something from your previous life, a previous trauma. And so therefore, you don't have much worth or value of yourself. So you're finding it in another person or finding it in something else, which is why I believe in teaching singles that you have to learn how to be single before you can be whole.
Wow.
Wow.
Hey, when we came up, everybody said 50-50. Well, I don't believe in 50-50 anymore. You have to be 100-100.
Right.
Yes.
Because if you're only bringing 50% of yourself, you're expecting the next person to add the other 50. And ultimately, you will always be disappointed.
Wow.
So if you're not working on being single, which means whole within yourself, complete within yourself, you and the Lord, you and yourself, then you're bringing a whole self to hopefully another whole person, which means they'll never be the end all be all. They will never be that. Even though you have the emotional attachment, which that's a whole thing within itself. But the first thing is learn how to be single. So a lot of times it's all that y'all said, the investment, all those things. And let me just tag it and move away from that to say this. When it happens, we have to be able to acknowledge that we made a mistake.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I take Carl Jung and a psychologist like Jason Peterson, we have to understand that mistakes are a part of life. And we have to be able to acknowledge that I made a mistake and acknowledge it's nobody else's fault or responsibility now but mine.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because most of the times we will want to blame somebody else. And so watch this. When we always attach all our failures to somebody else, we all attach ourselves to the thing that's dead and dying. So live again, breathe again.
Absolutely.
You know, once again, feel the hurt, experience the hurt, and learn from it. If you never learn from it, I think that's the tragedy.
Come on here.
If you never learn from it, I think that's the tragedy.
That's the tragedy.
Yeah.
If you never learn from it.
I gotta write that in my notes.
Yeah, that's a thought, y'all. Listen, that's a thought. Take that home tonight, y'all.
All right, drop the mic.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
I love it.
And I always got to give a shout. I can't let a Thursday go by if I don't give a shout out to the one and only Shepherd Mother Donna Parrish of the comment section. And she posted in here, she said, Reverend Willie love Dr. Johnson. You're talking good, sound wisdom, Pastor. Yes, sir.
Period.
Yes, sir. I'm like, oh my goodness. And we had a wow. I like that, y'all. What did he say, Ashley? Did you write it down yet?
Yes, I did. He said, if you don't learn from it, that's the tragedy.
That's the tragedy. If you don't learn from it, that's the tragedy. Oh, actually, I want to text you later about that. You want to text me that. Listen, look who's in the house, all the way from Louisville, Kentucky. Recording artist, Miss Tiffany Collier. So good to see you. Oh my goodness. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We're having a great conversation, y'all. So good to see you for tuning in and being a part of this conversation. We have 5 minutes left, y'all, and we're talking about how do I move on? Yes, they added a heart into it this time, a broken heart. How do I move on? Whether it's grief, whether it's relationships, whether it's we can talk about it. I don't know. We want to see if we're going to extend this or not, but how do you move on? And I say it on purpose because of the last 5 minutes of the show. How do you move on when your family members hurt you? How do you move on when some family members that you grew up with, whether they're cousins, whether they're aunt, uncle, niece, whether there's brother, sister, how do you move on when they do some things? I'm just throwing it in there. I didn't say we have to talk about it, but how do you move on? You know,
It should be a conversation at some point.
Choose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
What
That's the main thing.
Choose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta love
with
people from a
everything.
distance.
You gotta choose to move on. You gotta want to.
Isn't that something? So it's a choice. Even though I want to hold on, even though I want to walk around and be victim, I still have to choose to wow.
And you may be justified. They may have be dead wrong, but
choose.
Wow.
Choose.
And one thing you can always love and pray for people from a distance. You ain't got to like it, but you still got to learn to love them because that's the word of God. You ain't got to like it, but you got to learn to love them.
Evangelist Jones said pray, so I guess I got to choose to pray, Aunt Debbie, because sometimes I may not want to pray for them either. I got to choose
the right thing too.
I may have to
choose the right thing,
or choose not to.
But that's the thing that they need. They need the prayer. They need
the prayer.
I'm going to choose to pray. Choose to love them. Lord have mercy. Listen, it does end with love. Love does. I'm telling you that love covers so many different areas. So that is a how do we move on with family members is to continue to love. And again, they don't have to come back into that private, intimate space, but still to be able to, like I said, to still love from distance. That if something happens, I'm really concerned or actually concerned about you. You know, like I said, that is a choice. I agree with that, to choose.
Yes.
Ooh-wee, my Lord.
Choose ye this day. Isn't that what the word say?
Who you gonna serve though?
Yeah.
Ashley, I can't with you.
And watch this. So you end up when you choose you.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Me first.
Choose you.
Okay. And so how about with the choice?
Letting folk go and cutting the choose of keep rehearsing it in yourself. Choose yourself to live. Choose yourself to be up.
But how about what would just bless me with you saying it is I'm still going to choose to love you because it's really the choice is really better for me because the outcome is for me. So me choosing to still love you in spite of what you have done to hurt me is still making it a better me. Am I making any sense tonight?
Yes.
For anybody. Yeah. So that just when you said that, Pastor, that's the light bulb that came on. It's like, whoa, I'm going to continue to love you, even like I said, maybe from a distance. But I'm going to do it because go ahead.
Watch this. You're still focusing on the other person.
Wow.
When I say choose, choose to move forward. And see, that's what happens with church again. That now we're forcing ourselves to try to love them. We're trying to make ourselves do this. Choose you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, love you.
Wow.
All right. Love you. Now, that test will come in its time. Don't force yourself into that. That test will come in time.
Mm-hmm.
They'll call when they need something.
Right.
that test will come in time.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it the truth?
That's right.
And then watch this. If we choose us, then let's just say they don't call. Why are you fretting?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because now we still have ourselves attached to them. Hopefully they call us so I can get off on them. You haven't chose you yet.
Mm. Wow.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So we have some comments here before we close. We have some comments. Miss Tiffany said, that's an identity issue. Know who you are apart from your family. Know who you are. Mm-hmm. And Miss Donna said, and the choice is me. And we all get the victory. Y'all listen, that was the end of our show today. Let's talk about it. How do I move on? I think we had a great conversation and just so much, y'all, in this conversation today. And listen, we ran out of time, so maybe we can bring it back next week. We're not sure. We'll talk about it and let you all know. But listen, thank you for tuning in every time here at Sound Gospel Radio. And so we're building hope. We're transforming lives 24/7. And we appreciate you all. We appreciate you all. Thanks to you all for listening, for tuning in, for being a part of today's conversation. And we'll see you all next Thursday here, y'all. Sound Gospel Radio.
Building hope. Transforming lives 24/7. Sound Gospel Radio.